Hobby now. Today is February 21st, 2024. This is ZiggyNo sharing with you what's going on in sports card hobby right now, this week, and what you should be paying attention to. We're going to start off by talking about the AR autos and the Panini's under investigation, misinformation being spread out there by, well, we'll talk about that. Prism fraud. Prism God and the scam story that broke from Sports Card Radio. Why we're going to talk about this is not as much about the scam, but about really what's the backbone of the hobby. And should we be concerned? Gambling. Teachers in the hobby. Teachers in the hobby. I was listening to a teacher talk about gambling in the hobby, and it made me think about all the teachers that are involved in the hobby. What are their thoughts on the hobby? What are they seeing from kids? Do they think things are good, bad? What is the perspective of teachers? And why are there so many damn teachers in sports card content hobby? I'm all for it, but do you guys realize there's so many of you? Like so many of you. Like you can't miss them. Topps Hall of Fame versus the YouTube Hall of Fame. Thoughts on fame? Everybody's chasing fame, right? I want to live forever. Baby, remember my name. Fame. Right? Isn't that the song? Story on shipping. UPS, FedEx versus US Postal Service. I actually had a problem with US Postal Service myself, so I'll share some story on that and why I use US Postal Service is the most important part of this conversation. And then I can't not talk about the Panini Unsigned O'Connell Immaculate cards. That was broken news yesterday. Did hear about that immediately. And then my thoughts. Here are my thoughts. No one cares. No one does. We do, like the few nerds, like propellers are spinning for the nerds, but no one cares. So sit back, grab your drink, beverage, coffee, whatever it is that you do when you listen to Hobby Now. I hope you're on the podcast. I forget, I'm done podcasting this. I hit the podcast button. I don't know if it's going out there. If anybody is listening to me on the podcast, can you leave a comment below? I'd love to hear that. Also, like, comment, subscribe, leave comments. What would you like to hear on Hobby Now? What are we missing? Also sprinkling in some other great content during the week. We're trying to keep this weekly podcast on the roll. Let's see, November, December, January, February, November, December, January, right? February, 4 months now. That's pretty cool. It's hard for me to keep things going for that long, but this weekly commitment seems to be working out well. All right. Let's start. The announcement that Panini is under investigation. When I saw that, like many people, you look at the comments, under investigation by whom? Who's investigating? PSA doesn't investigate anybody. What the hell are you talking about? Eric Whiteback, I think is his name. Eric, I appreciate what you do for the hobby. I guess a little bit of me is just jealous and envious of the fact that you have so many people paying attention to what you say when really you have no clue what the hell you're talking about. You're not a guru. You're not an expert. And I guess there's a lot of this. I think maybe as I've been here longer, I feel this. I applaud those people who are trying to make a business and, want to put out content. But God damn it, can you put out some good content or be accountable to the shit you produce? Or, I don't know, like there's just, Panini's under investigation. Dude, this guy, collectible guru, Eric, I know you're probably not old enough to remember this, but way back in 2016, 17, way back, we're talking like 8 whole years. I don't know where you were in your collecting experience, but Beckett called Dak Prescott's autographs into question. They never questioned Panini. They didn't go, Panini's not doing the right thing. They questioned Dak Prescott's autos. So maybe the question should be, PSA is questioning Anthony Richards autos, not claiming that PSA is investigating Panini. First thing that came to my mind is that I think Eric got a big check from Michael Rubin, and Rubin's like, dude, just run with the story. I need you to cause as much FUD as you can, man, because AR didn't sign with me exclusive. I don't want his autos going out there, so just put some FUD. I know that didn't happen. Would that be the most plausible reason for why the hell Eric, the collectible guru, decided to make some false accusations about Panini's under investigation? Dude, why are you guys picking on Panini? I don't get it. But it made me think to myself, really what this comes down to is marketing. The race to getting your voice heard, the race to being listened to having an ability to influence change is really about marketing and bullshit and not about reality. I'm not good at that. I'll be brutally honest. It's just not my strength. As you can see on my channel, I'm not well liked. I don't get a lot of views. I have a lot of good ideas people talk about, and they like to talk to me, and we have good conversations and collaborations, right? No one is found out that I've been wrong, but I'm just not good at this marketing thing. And that worries me because we move forward. Those are going to be the voices the next generation comes into and listens to. They're going to listen to the collectible guru and go, he's a collectible guru. I'm like, think about this. 10 years from now, when he's actually an adult, and I'm just joking, he's probably an adult already, but when he's really an adult in 10 years, people are really going to think he's the collectible guru. That should concern you. There's just a lot of that around. Um, what was the other one? There was another one. What was it? Somebody made a comment about this. The best marketing are often the worst in experience of real life. And I think that's a really good takeaway. So that being said, let's talk about the other influence. Prism God, and this scam that Sports Card Radio called out. Nice little video clip about it. You can check out Sports Card Radio to get more story on this. What brought my attention to this? I'm not a fan of Prism, dude. I don't like saying Prism God. I think that's just blasphemy. I know he spells with Gawd, but I just think that's wrong. Anyway, Prism dude, not been a fan of his since his shady involvement with that autograph and InvestiCard. And I've not been a fan of a lot of these guys who create these shows just to make money off people. And this seems to be the case. It seems like Prism dude did not make enough money off of Culture Collision, so he ran this raffle. And the reason I'm bringing the raffle up, I'm not even going to talk about whether this is right or wrong. I just want to point out gambling is the hobby. The hobby is gambling. I know there are a lot of collectors out there who don't gamble, who don't like to say that or admit it, but it is. And we really need to recognize that. In my opinion, we need to put some regulations on this puppy. I mean it. I honestly mean that. Like, I've been thinking about this for a lot, and I've talked to other people. I don't think a kid should be allowed to buy a sports card box that has odds on it. I don't. I think the manufacturers should have to make products with no odds on it that are for kids, and then they make adult products for adults. I really do feel that way. I'm probably in the minority, but I think I'm going to be right when we look at this in a few years and we realize how damaging gambling is to society. Let me get into that. Okay. So my concern there with the Prism God thing is he runs this illegal raffle. I pray to God that the real one, right? The GOD. I pray to God that there's punishment and someone pays some fines. And this is made an example. We don't let this go unchecked. We've let this go unchecked too much, and it's going to ruin the hobby that, well, some of us love. Teachers. Now, I want to talk about teachers. I mentioned in the intro that teachers are on the hobby, but here's what came to me. I love listening to Crosstown Collectibles with Greg and, gosh, I can't remember the guy's name. Two just great young collector guys. Craig is a teacher in New York City, and he made a comment. And first, let me make a little note. He's doing a tour to Fanatics with his students. I absolutely love that idea. I'd love to go myself. I can't, but I'd love to hear more about the tour. Is the tour open to others? Has anybody been on a tour to Fanatics? And here's why. What is Fanatics marketing to children? And Craig even mentions, he said after the Super Bowl, a lot of his kids asked him about who'd you bet on? Did you win money? And he commented that I guess this younger generation just really likes gambling. Craig, my young friend, every generation really, really loves gambling. I mean, seriously, every fucking generation loves gambling. It's kind of human. It's what makes us take risks, takes chances. And we do it for gain. However, this is the first generation, the recent one, the youngest one that's growing up in an era where gambling is not checked. There's very, very little regulation. I remember as a kid, I mean, gambling was like a sin. I mean, it was a fucking sin, guys. Like, if you gambled, you were supposed to tell God about it on Sunday and like you confessed as a Catholic. Okay, that's confess. You confess to gambling because it's sinful. Today, it is everywhere, right? And my question to the teachers out there who are very active in the hobby, and many of you do not appear to be the ripping, flipping type. You're the collector type. What are your thoughts on sports cards and the children and the hobby in the future? And do you, and I'm going to assume you can't, you couldn't agree with this, but should we regulate sports cards? Should they be an item like cigarettes or like alcohol that you cannot get access to until you're a certain age? I'm beginning to think more and more, yes. And my concern about this, if these young kids in these schools are already growing up asking about gambling, talking about gambling, and I'm gonna throw you a curveball here. I have kids like that. My kids got involved in fantasy football, they got involved in sports cards, and they've been involved in gambling. And they're too young for that. And it upsets me, but I know it goes on. Okay, you can't be an ignorant fool. This gambling's everywhere. You go to a Super Bowl party, and there's gonna be could be some form of gambling. I don't want to sound like, negative Nancy on this, but guys, I'm just concerned about it. It's just too prevalent, too everywhere. What Fanatics has done to the hobby has really made it a great place to gamble. I'm a gambler. I would rather gamble on cards than I would gamble at a casino. I just would, but I do gamble. I gamble. I'm a gambler. So That's my concern. I love to hear from the teachers. I'm gonna start asking some of the teachers what their thoughts. I forget the midlife card guy, really good collector guy. Very talks about teaching all the time. I'm wondering what his thoughts are. I have to assume that you cannot. You'd be think I'm crazy, right? No, we can't make cards illegal for kids. Kids are the future. We got to get more cards and kids into it. But I'm sitting there thinking to myself, when these kids that Craig is taking to Fanatics next week, are they going to be positioning them gambling? And am I just overreacting on gambling? Is gambling going to be okay? I have some friends in Europe who told me that Europe is suffering some major, major problems in depression, suicide, and a crime because of gambling, because they changed their gambling laws before the United States did. Don't know if this is true or not, but just want to make a note. February 21st, I brought it to your attention again. I think we need to regulate the gambling prospect of this hobby. I know people don't want to hear that, but it's just something that I think needs to be said. Teachers, are you doing anything to help grow the hobby? Are you doing like, are there collective things? Are you working with other teachers? Like I would just put this way, if I was a teacher, I'd want to talk to other teachers about what they're doing and try to share my lesson plan. I'm hoping you guys are doing that. I'm hoping the teachers are doing more to pull things together. Maybe like, for example, I think teachers should buy a booth at local shows for them and their kids to take time at during the weekend. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm in Chantilly. There should be a student teacher booth, okay, from the local schools. Fairfax County is the school this stuff's in. Fairfax County local public school teachers and the card club get access to the table, and their children come and lay cards out, sell, buy, and trade. I think that's a fucking great idea, right? I mean, think about this. As a club, wouldn't you want your kids to collect cards and then, hey, you go to a local card show that's sponsoring the local kids? I mean this, Chantilly, you should think about this. I might reach out and try to make this happen. I just don't have the teaching connections here. I don't have that. I just, heard a rumor. You guys remember the Tops does their baseball conference normally every spring? It normally happens by now. Like normally we're hitting all those rumors. Like last year we heard the rumors. I think it was in February about LeBron. We're gonna do something that's gonna change the hobby, and that was the debut patches, right? And then they had LeBron rumors, and LeBron came and signed. And then they talked about they kind of laid out the year for you. They're going to do some special things. The taco fracture. I don't know if it was announced, but they kind of hinted to it. That was cool last year. We haven't had that yet. I heard a rumor, and I want to say I heard this rumor. Let me just make sure I'm giving credit to everybody. I showed it where I'm at this. I talked about Eric Whiteback, whatever, and his AR cards. Prism God, you know who he is. Teachers, Cardboard, Crosstown Collections, great guys. Um, I want to say it was Sports Card Radio might have mentioned it. Might have mentioned that Tops is doing a conference, and it looks like it's going to be in Atlanta. If anybody knows anything about this, please let me know. I'd love to learn. I've always wanted to go to that conference, the Tops Card Conference, but it's always been in Arizona during spring training, and it's just way too far for me. If they did it in Florida, I thought about going. If they did it in Atlanta, I might do that. Um, what are your thoughts? Also, here we are in February, guys. A card show's been doing really well. I saw that Burbank was booming. Really, really great insights. Tyler Short did a really good review of the Burbank card show. Explained, like one thing he talked about was there are lots of waxing wizards. That's what I call them. You know, the guys that are gonna shine your card up, wizards, magic, and they make their cards turn into a tens. Lots of waxing wizards in the West Coast. Just shocks me. Like that's another area. Like, I'll be honest. That's an area that needs to be regulated, but I'd rather us regulate the gambling aspect of this before we start dealing with the altar ring trimming. As far as I'm concerned, do anything you want to, man. If they can't catch you, it's legal. And I mean that because the more altering and trimming and shit that goes on, that will then push people to push the ring companies to actually make a change. But they're not going to make a change right now. They don't care. They don't care. They're making money. Monopoly hits. Oh my goodness. Monopoly hits this week. I knew it was coming. I did not pre-order any. I kind of wish I did. I was going to do this whole year. I'm only going to buy in breaks. I'm not going to buy boxes or retail. Well, that's not working out pretty well. I actually was looking at my books, looking to get my taxes together, looking at last year, what I bought and sold. So I bought more Monopoly Prizm at Target than I think any other product last year. More than I spent total at the local card stores, more than I spent total at Walmart. Not more than I spent in break, but total as far as in-person purchases, I spent more at Target last year than any other card store. This year I'm already off to a good start with Walmart on Prizm. I know I need to stop that, but it is what it is. It's hard. I mean, there are some good retail products. Not a lot. Most of them suck. I'm not going to be showing any breaks or anything like that, but I'd say Monopoly is a beautiful product. What I will also say, it looks like Monopoly is better and worse this year. It's better in the sense that every box actually has some shiny cards in it. You have these purple cards, which are probably overprinted like hell. But it also looks like the hits are harder to get, a lot harder to get. I have not seen a checklist yet. It's still 3 players per team. So I have seen the Lakers have, LeBron, AD, and is it Westbrook? Was that Westbrook? I'll check that because I think Westbrook's not there anymore. Who was that? The person they had on their team? I thought it was Westbrook. I thought I saw a short print Westbrook in the Lakers uniform. Anyway, Monopoly, big fan of that. I love the checklist last year. Kind of came in at sleeper time. It was after Prizm basketball's out. This year, it's coming out before and right after the retail. And it's made a rush. I mean, a frenzy. In fact, I don't know if you saw this too. The 1 of 1 Black Shimmer Wembyamba was already pulled. I think it was pulled in China, which is kind of interesting. And what will that go for? I don't know. It'll go for too much. I'll tell you that. Today, February 21st, is Prizm release day, so Prizm should be ripping everywhere. Should see some mangoes and some short prints and white prisms, and there's other weird stuff that they've added in it. I will tell you too, I'll talk a little bit about what I'm doing. And I am going to be doing my breaking live show this evening as well with a special guest, Michael Hand. We're going to talk about breaking. I have been doing too much retail, trying to decide whether I do more Prizm breaks, Prizm football breaks, or Prizm basketball. Prizm basketball, though, $1,000, $2,000 for the Spurs. It's just really deep. And I don't want to chase crap teams. I might pick some other teams to go after in Prizm, but I'm also I'm holding, as I said earlier in my videos, I'm holding back and not rushing out the door in Prizm like I did football. I'm going to wait for basketball and see the prices come down a little bit, a little more option. Again, we have Monopoly, we have retail, and we have hobby all now. So that's hitting hard. That's hitting the economy hard, or the card economy pretty hard. FedEx, UPS, and US Postal Service. So I'm going to talk about this real quickly. I saw a video, SCV talks about the fact he never uses insurance. He only uses US Postal Service, and he uses signature confirmation. I actually think that's probably the best way to go. I really do. I think that might be the best way to ship cards to people. I have in the past, I always use US Postal Service, and I use insurance on most items. Why I don't use FedEx and why I don't use UPS. I was told that neither FedEx or UPS will cover the items in the form of sports cards if you insure them. I know I heard this in US Postal Service, or I'm sorry, UPS. UPS, the brown truck guys, whatever. So I spoke to them and I was going to ship some stuff, and they said, we don't insure collectibles and we don't insure sports cards because, and here's the reason what someone said to it, is that they don't know how to value them. You could put some cards in there, have it disappear, and then make a claim for $10,000 when the card's maybe worth a couple $100, right? So they don't even touch it. And I think this is interesting they talk about. I've heard the same with FedEx. And that makes sense to me. Again, walk through this with me. If you claim $1,000 in cards for one card you ship, and that card ends up missing, and then you go make the claim on a $1,000 card, but turns out that card might have gone down to $500. Maybe it's gone up, whatever. You see what I'm saying? Like the valuation is so hard to do in cards to replacement. That is why I was told that UPS and FedEx do not cover collectibles. Now, as far as US Postal Service goes, my understanding is they don't cover the collectible either, but they'll reimburse you for the amount that you insure to. Only if the item, I believe, I think it's if it's lost, right? It doesn't, if it's open and it's delivered, that doesn't count. I think SCV talked about this. Which made me think to myself, I think the best way to go is signature confirmation, because signature confirmation, the mail gets separated, so that it has to go to someone to sign for it. The Postal Service holds it until somebody signs and takes responsibility for it. And having that signature gives you a chain of custody of knowing who had the item. So I do think it's worth paying for signature, but not worth paying for insurance. Let me get to the story here. So Raul on AIH did a story about a guy who shipped a card UPS. He didn't pick UPS, but shipped UPS. Never got to the person. He had to pay the money, reimburse the loss of the card, $9,000. And then later on, he finds his card being sold because there's apparently some clearinghouse for these damaged, lost, or stolen packages for FedEx and UPS. And I've heard about this before. I've heard this, that there's some place that will buy the damaged, lost, stolen, whatever FedEx stuff, and they can resell it. They do it all legally. I believe the reason for this, guys, is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, someone can comment this, U.S. Postal Service is a specific, I believe it's constitutional right to citizens, And because of that, there's federal protection about messing with, stealing, damaging, destroying mail. Okay. So my mail is federal property. When I put it in the mailbox, it becomes property of the federal government until it gets to the other citizen, and then it becomes their property. But in that chain of custody, it's federal. That's my understanding. Because of that, it's more secure. Why is it more secure? Well, if it gets lost or missing, it's a crime. It's a federal crime. Like if someone steals that package, it's a federal crime. If someone's opened that package, it's a federal crime. And there are chains of custody. You might not always get the stuff back. I'm not going to tell you it's 100% you get stuff back from the Postal Service, but there's at least laws and penalties and capabilities behind it, so that I have always stuck with the U.S. Postal Service. Now, I've done insurance. I think I'm going to move towards signature only. Love to get your perspective, thoughts on that. I do know this, though. FedEx and UPS are just private property, moving from private property to another person. That's why, I'll tell you another thing. You know, on those decks, when people put packages, like UPS puts packages on there, and people run and steal that stuff. You know why they're doing that? And they don't steal from your post office box? Because if they steal from your post office box, there's federal minimums. I mean, there's a minimum time I think you spend in jail for federal theft. Where stealing off someone's porch, I believe, is a state or local offense. And again, that's not the Postal Service. I believe that's UPS and Federal. Please, or UPS and FedEx. Please correct me on this, because I think this is something that someone needs to make a better video on. Explain that. Like, what should be your shipping options? Why should you ship with one carrier over the other? And should you never ship with this carrier? What are the insurance ramifications? Yada, yada, yada. I would love to hear that and hear more. But anyway, that's some food for thought, and that is why I stick with just USPS. Now, I will say I had a recent issue with USPS. There was a screw up at the Postal Service, and they returned a bunch of items of mine to the original shippers, which is really screwed. Like they had my boxes closed for some reason. I put that they had my boxes closed. It was not closed, and it's totally wrecked my entire shipping world. However, what I like, again, USPS, they're helping me. They can track it. And it made me think about that when I was put this video together. Okay, last thing to talk about. And I'll just kind of close what I'm working on in hobby right now. But last thing to close about is those O'Connell immaculate autograph cards that were found in the trash. I thought it was really interesting. If this was let me get my autograph. Broke the news on this. He posted pictures of this. It's on, I think Dan the Card Man's picked it up. Sports Card Radio picked it up. You can go see this. It has the whole list. Like it's definitely the package that is sent to the athlete to complete their signature. Here's a few things that I that I want to take away from this. Number one, and the most important things to take away: no one cares. I mean, no one gives a shit. No one. I know that's tough, but what I mean by that is obviously the athlete got this box. He's like, yeah, dude, I'm not gonna do this. I'm done. Just those are the trash. That's really the way it is. He's like, I'm not gonna do it. Throwing in the trash. Or maybe his girlfriend, we're throwing trash. Whatever it is, Aiden O'Connell never signed a bunch of immaculate stuff. Which makes me think to myself, the training that's involved in educating these athletes about what they're doing when they're signing things is just not there, right? I think part of that is, I think the hobby for many, many years pulled the wool down on the athlete. They wanted the athlete to be ignorant. Hey, we're going to give you $1 per autograph, man. You're making a lot of money. And on the other side, they're flipping these things for so much more money. I think, for example, Giannis, when he's signing his autographs, he starts looking at how much these things are selling. He's like, why am I returning these? I'm going to keep these. I think the hobby it's just no one cares, right? The manufacturers don't care. The athletes don't care. And the reason I say that, guys, take a red pill. Here's the reality. It really is just a bunch of cardboard pictures and it's worthless shit. We create in our minds this valuation, and there's enough of us that we manifest it into reality where people pay extraordinary amounts of money. And that is why I've always kind of wondered, when is everybody going to wake up and be like, I was hoping that all the money coming in from 2020, all the investor money, all the companies, we put some legitimacy behind us. Like, for example, I do think, right, there needs to be some laws and regulations. I think athletes should have some understanding of what an autograph is, why it's important, why is it legally binding. I think this starts with kids, right? I don't think at a kid's level they understand this, right? But understand what your signature is used for, how it can be used, why your dad should not be signing your baseball cards for you. I mean, these are basic things. The company should work on this, right? They should also ensure the production, the distribution. So they should just ship a box of immaculate to some athlete. And I know this is Panini, not Topps, but guys, come on. I mean, you're making all this money. You think you'd have a representative, one representative per team that would go to each team, or one representative per city, I don't know, per league, that go to each team and at least get on a Zoom with the person? Make me lie to me. Tell me you're on the Zoom with the guy when he opens his box. First thing hey, when you open your box, hit the Zoom link and we'll walk through this together. There's just so many things we could do with technology today. But no one cares. And it's scary. It should scare you. And that is why they get away with the shit they do here, right? That's why you can grift, you can run these illegal gambling. I don't want to go off on a negative note here, but this is what the I struggle with in the hobby is that there's so much we could do better and no one cares. It just really breaks down to it. There's no one cares. It's not going to get better. Hit tracking, no one cares, right? Fraud and anti-theft, no one cares. Altering, trimming, washing your cards, no one cares. Like, comment, subscribe. I enjoy this. Hope you do too. Hobby on, people. Hobby on.